right. We're going to go into the financial fallout that the job loss brings.
My car, if I was gonna get gas, I would get $10 gas as opposed
Yeah,
to like like that was more like I was more like gauging the amount of fuel, the gas I
yeah,
was putting in my car, which was
yeah,
kind of strange.
yeah,
I would go to the store if I was to get something of $5. I would look for a cheaper alternative.
yeah.
I would walk around the store. I was spending more time shopping because I needed to check the.
For the first time in 9 years of living abroad, my internet was cut off. I couldn't buy. There was a particular time I couldn't buy a case of water that was $3 for something. I had to boil water. I had planned to go to Nigeria 2 weeks after I lost my job. I had booked my ticket. I had planned for my mom's 15th year death anniversary. And as
Wow,
soon
that's
as I lost my job, I cancelled that trip. So that trauma
wow.
also stayed. All right. We're going to go into the financial fallout that the job loss brings. Um, what was the first bill that you were worried about? I think I know it, but please speak.
Well, yeah, tons of bills, just like every other day. I mean, your bills would never stop. But for me, I had so many bills at the time because I remember before then I was taking a course online that I was paying for.
Yeah.
So a part of me, I just like it was a quick decision making time for me. I needed to start acting because if I didn't act fast, some bills would be charged automatically to my credit card, and it would mean that I'll have to pay for something I wasn't really prepared for at
Ready
that
for
particular
it.
time. So it was
Absolutely.
a time for me to really stand up, know all the bills I needed to stop, the ones I could afford to stop at that particular time. So, like I said, I was taking a course. I needed to contact the school, tell them, hey, guys, I
I
can't
can no
afford to
longer.
continue at this time. Is it okay if I opt out till I'm able to resolve my financial struggles? Which was one of those things I think I fixed as early as possible. Um, yeah, because at the time, obviously, I was also kind of like considering other things. I think the next thing I took was my Netflix, my Prime. All those
Like,
were not
ain't
too
nobody
important to
got
me
time
at
for
that time.
movies.
I'm like, I don't have time for this. So I needed to take those ones off because they were kind of like little bills. Though they were not so much, but again, at the time, every
Every
single
single
dollar meant a
dollar
lot
count.
to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I needed to take those ones off. Um, if I would talk about the biggest financial expenses I needed to make at that time that was really important, I would say it was more of my rent. You
So
know,
I thought I was in.
rent was something that I needed to like figure out as soon as possible. And thank God, like I said, my family they're really awesome. Like again, I keep telling people, never let go of your family. You can let go of friends, you can let go of other people in your life, but your family would always stand by you. It's important to have a good family. That's one of the importance of having a good family, people who can afford to show up for you when you're going through such moments. So when you have family members, try as much as possible to keep them in your life. Don't push your family away. They were very instrumental, even though I wasn't expecting them to give me money, but I had this assurance that if I needed it, I was going to get the support. So that alone kind of like gave me the confidence that I needed to keep doing other things, to keep focusing on other things. Now, something as simple as if you need any help with your rent, we're here for you, took the burden of rent from my mind, even though I knew it
Mm,
was there, but it was not as as pressing as it should be, or it would be if I didn't have that reassurance somewhere from my family member. So it was kind of like one of the biggest expenses I had to make right after my job loss. At the time, I had not even gotten any financial support from the government. So it was more of me still pulling my hands into my savings to sort out my rent. And I think another thing there was my car insurance. I needed to park my car because I couldn't afford to drive a car at that time. I knew if I had to continue driving my car, I mean, continue paying my insurance, that was going to be a lot of,
expense.
expenses on me. I mean, at least for the first month or two, I think I took it off. Then eventually, I think I restored it because I needed to use my car for other things. right? Which were also financial benefit to me. So I would say the first 2 months it was something I needed to take off just to kind of like, get a hold of my expenses,
Mm-hmm.
understand what I needed to do at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those were the two. I would say those were the two major
Major.
expenses I incurred at that time, and they were really important, right? They
Oh
were
yeah.
really important.
Shelter.
You can't excuse yourself from those things.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. Okay. All right, thanks for answering that. For me, it was mostly my rent. I had just moved, like I said, into a bigger apartment. All the times that I stayed in Toronto, I was just in one bedroom. But because I got this new fancy job with, the pay was more than
Mouth watering.
mouth watering. Exactly. Mouth watering pay, perks like benefits. I had a company car. So I'm like, why not? It's time to up my games. You need to live not big, but
Yeah,
live better than I was previously. And so I got a 2 bedroom, really fancy, nice 2 bedroom, which was more expensive. But if I still had the job, it was okay because I would still have money to save. Now,
mm,
here, I will pause here to say that sometimes because we do not know what life would bring, it may not be the wisest decision to jump to increase your expenses as soon as you get
absolutely.
a
I agree.
job.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that.
Yes, it may be mouth watering. Yes, it may be way more than you were earning before, but I think you should work your way into it,
Yeah,
save a bit, and then you
yeah,
can now increase your
yeah,
significantly, your expenses significant. So that's the lesson that
yeah,
I learned. And then,
yeah.
anyway, so as soon as I lost the job, the first thing that came to mind is, oh my goodness, how would I pay this rent? So immediately I looked into EI. For those of you who don't know what EI is, employment insurance is something that people who lose their jobs in Canada are entitled to, depending on how long they have worked in the past and where they worked in the past and how much they earned in the past. There's a calculation that Service Canada does to establish how much you'll be earning and for how long. Now, I'm going to
Yeah.
state here for information purposes, because I had worked just 6 months prior to losing my job, I was only entitled to 4 months of EI. I think four months of EI. So it depends
Well,
on,
that's pretty strong.
yeah, it was pretty short. So it depends on how long. If I had worked 1 year, the full 1 year, leading up to my to losing my job, I would have been entitled to 1 year of EI. So it really depends. Anyway, so I contacted Service Canada and calculated how much I was going to get. I was not going to get my full income, so it meant that whatever they were going to give me was going to sort out maybe 70 or 80% of my rent, but I had other expenses, like Biro had said. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was the major worry, my rent. Did you have savings or were you living paycheck to paycheck? Was it a paycheck? There was no paycheck anymore. So, but yeah,
Well,
you already said you
y-
had savings.
well, to be fair, like if you say savings, I would say yes, I did have some money saved up, but to be fair, it was more of an investment than a saving for me. So, I mean, again, that's one thing. That brings me back to the topic of having, planning your finances in this country as well.
Yeah.
Outside your investments, it's also important that you have your emergency funds,
Yes.
right? So, I wasn't super like, I wasn't really invested in my emergency fund. I was more invested in my investment accounts. So it was one of those things I actually learned from that experience, right? I had more money saved up in my investment account than my
Then
emergency. I didn't even have an emergency fund.
fun.
It was just the little I had in my account at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to resort into going into my investment, breaking some investment to get money out of it when I needed money. But was I living paycheck to paycheck? I would say, well, there was no paycheck, just like you rightly said. But you would consider EI a paycheck anyway. So
Exactly.
I would say, yeah, a paycheck. But it wasn't super bad for me because, again, like I said, I I had the support of family, even though I wasn't depending on them. I don't think at any point in time I needed to call them for money,
Oh,
even though they
lucky
offered
you.
to help. But truth be told, it was something I already got used to. I knew there was always a time in life where you had to cut down your expenses, right? So, to start with, I was never someone who lived, an
Lavish.
extravagant life. And just like you said, cut your coat according to your size.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you got a new job, the fact that you got promotion in your job doesn't mean you should go buy a Tesla or go
Yes,
buy a Cybertruck.
yes, yes,
you know,
yes,
you know, build
absolutely.
yourself into that stability, walk yourself into stability before you start to consider those things. I'm not in a position to tell you not to buy whatever you want, but I would advise that you get yourself, some sort of stability before you start looking into those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it happens that you find yourself in such situation that we found ourselves,
Yeah,
you might struggle. You might
exactly,
struggle. But if you don't have some of those things in your hands, your struggle might be less compared to someone who has all of those things in place. So
exactly.
for me, it was, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God that I didn't have so many of those things in my life. And I wasn't really set up to live that extravagant life at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So it kind of made it easy for me to kind of, dislodge, let go of certain things I felt like I wasn't really I wasn't needing at that particular time of my life.
yes.
you know, I was able to go back to my normal life, even though with a little bit of low quality life because I couldn't afford to buy so many things. Not
Okay.
because I couldn't buy them, because I knew I needed to have some money saved up in case I do not find something within the period I was entitled to EI.
Yeah.
So it
Mm,
took a lot of financial toll on me. I needed to be more financially wise at that time.
of course.
So obviously, it's gonna take you back to that point where your finances, your knowledge of finances will be tested,
Hmm.
and even your own appetites would be tested.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, so so
We
many
can
things
go.
happened, but it's a lot
Yeah,
to talk about.
it's a lot to talk about. We'll go into how our lifestyles changed, but let me
Yeah,
answer the question of did I have savings? No, I didn't have savings this time because previously the year before, I had quit my full time job. This time, I wasn't laid off. I quit my full
yeah,
time job because I had gone through a very rough acquisition. My company was acquired by a very terrible company, and all our lives changed. Teammates had left. I was the only one left. To handle the workload of about 5 people. And so it was tired, it was toxic. I quit immediately. And then, so I was without job for months before I got this job. So you can see the trajectory of things. I was without job and then I got this job. I was so excited about it. So the time that I was without job, because I already had an emergency fund, I spent that emergency fund during that period. So the whole idea was this new job was going to help me recoup, was going to help me get a new, start saving again. Voila, it didn't happen. And just
it's like
before,
double blow.
double blow. And just before I lost my job in February, I had just hosted family in December. Family came from the UK. They were so excited. This was the first time I had spent Christmas with family in 15 years. So I was
Wow.
excited. Yeah, I was excited. My little cousins, I took them shopping. We went to different places.
Rich auntie.
Rich auntie, you get it. So I had absolutely no savings. And
Yeah.
was I living paycheck to paycheck? Like you said, yeah, it was the paycheck. I was living like it was so. Yeah, I didn't pay my rent. He couldn't pay my rent. He paid some of it. And so my friends, you spoke about family. I was with some family, yes, but my friends were the real MVPs. Like I
Yeah.
said, I can talk a lot about how my friends showed up for me. They showed up financially. I had a friend who was sending me money, like thousands of dollars every month. As soon as I called
Wow.
her, she would send me. God bless her. Let's go on.
Amen. Amen. Let's appreciate such people.
Yes,
I mean, to be fair, you need such people in your life. You need people who can always show up for you. Not necessarily always, but at least show up for you in time of need.
in
Like
time
they
and
say,
friend,
or like the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed.
indeed.
some people would let go of you at such a crucial moment, while some will hold on to you.
Yes,
So it depends on
yes.
the quality of your friends in those moments.
Yes, you know the quality of your friends, and I need to touch on something that you just said. Some people will let go of you in that moment, or in that period. I remember that because I'm someone who picks up herself immediately when I have a child. Within 2 weeks, I'm already myself. I'm either on IG, on YouTube. I'm already doing things back, but this time was different. I went completely off. Wherever you can remember, I went
Yeah.
completely off. I wasn't posting. I wasn't motivated to do anything. I wasn't my usual bounce back self. And so some friends found it hard to deal with me like that because they were so used to seeing me bounce back. They were used to seeing me. So if I remember a friend telling me that, how, what's going on? This is different. Of course, it's different. I had never gone through a layoff. And the circumstances surrounding this layoff was different because I had packed up my life for this job and it was just taking the rug was just pulled underneath my legs. We're gonna
Yeah. Speaking of, just to touch on that a little bit, just sorry, I might have to drag you back a bit,
it's okay.
but that's an interesting one. To be
Hmm.
fair, like like the way friends actually handle our struggles is different. Some people they tend to internalize what their friends are going through, justifiably. I mean, well, I would say some friends might have like genuine reasons to pull back because they tend to absorb things strongly.
Mm,
While some who have the emotional capacity to support you at that particular time still might decide to pull back for personal reasons. But
mm,
like I just said, like I said before, you know the quality of your friends in such moments. The kind of
yeah,
friends you have, you know them at that particular point in time. Who are
yeah,
they? Can they stand by you? Can they walk through that moment together with you, or would they back off? Some people feel like, oh, me say about the struggle, like, pardon me, use
exactly,
region. You know, they might feel like, oh, I'm also an immigrant, like just like yourself.
exactly.
So that it will not be, so that it will be enough for you and me, or whatever the case is. Go get your own oil. I'm trying to refer to that biblical story that when the 10 virgins, like five were
Yes,
wise
go
and
get your
five were wise,
exactly.
you know, I understand that part where everyone is like, oh, I'm in this country to kind of better my life as well.
Mm-hmm.
But let's learn to show up ourselves. Let's learn to help ourselves.
Yes.
When the little help you can offer can go a long way,
Oh,
it can actually
absolutely.
help someone, in that difficult moment. Like I said, I remember then someone gifting me just about $2 or $3 extra then was a lot of money. It felt like a lot of money to me.
Yeah,
Was it a lot of money? Well, maybe not, but at the time it was a lot of money to me.
of
So
course.
going extra mile to call in, just calling in, even if you can't offer financial help, calling in, buying groceries,
Yes,
sending money, doing one or two things can actually help them out of those situations. I just felt the need to talk
absolutely.
about that.
Oh yes, very, very important. And I do also want to touch on this last thing before we move on to the next thing. Is we also need to be careful and be very self-aware of the kind of friends that we are. I did a video. If you look through my channel, you see a video where I said, "What kind of friend are you?" Because
Mhm,
the kind of friend you are in good times really determines, not necessarily, it's not a guarantee that if you're a good person you get good in return when you, but at least you know that when, if you are a good person in good times, some people will show up for you because you have
mhm,
either shown up for them one way or the other. Like Mary said, it's not necessarily only about finances, it's
mhm.
also just the moral support, just the emotional support. So yes, what kind of
Absolutely.
friend are you in good times? So we
Yeah.
should be very self-aware. We should try as much as possible to be good friends ourselves. We're not saying we're hoping that bad things will happen to us, but we know how life is. Life as we
Yeah.
know it. All right. Quickly, let's touch on how did your lifestyle change immediately after. We've talked about it, so, in one way or the other, but yeah, we can talk more about it. How did your lifestyle change?
Well, to be
Did you
fair,
start drinking
I
Gary?
didn't have to be told. I didn't have to be told I needed to cut so many things down. I went from having, a fully loaded fridge to having a I don't know how to describe that, but it was more of I could count the groceries or the food stuff I had in my fridge at that time. It was a difficult one in terms of, not like it was difficult, but I needed to do those things. I needed to reduce the way I spent money, so
Oh,
I
wow.
needed to cut down, the way I would buy stuff and stock them up in the fridge. I couldn't afford to do that anymore because I needed to use that money for other important things,
Absolutely.
right? What else changed? Obviously, my outings, I couldn't go out as often as I used to before then. And to be fair, I think I even had some trips planned out before then. Before the whole incident, I had planned, going on vacation. I had some trips I had already lined up on my list of to do for the year. And all of those ones, no one had to teach me to take them out.
Yeah.
Obviously, your life was taking a turn around at that point. So you definitely have to, cut your coat according to your size. Yeah, just like every other person, I had to cancel those plans. Um, what else changed? Yeah, I know this is kind of funny, but at the time I started driving again, my car, if I was gonna get gas, I would get $10 gas as opposed
Yeah.
to like, like that was more like I was more like gauging the amount of fuel, the gas I
Yeah.
was putting in my car, which was
Yeah.
kind of strange.
Yeah.
I would go to the store if I was to get something of $5. I would look for a cheaper alternative.
Yeah.
I would walk around the store. I was spending more time shopping because I needed to check the price difference,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these were some of the modifications that came compared to me in the past. I would go into any store. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I would go into any store and I would literally just pick up anything without checking the price.
Look at
I
that.
needed
Oh,
to start going into the
shit.
store, checking price. Okay, I knew all the cheaper stores around.
I
So
know.
those were some of the modifications that came in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I couldn't afford to change wardrobe at that particular point in time. I needed to make do with what I had.
Yeah.
Those ones were like even like on
No,
the back of my
in
priority.
fact,
I couldn't bring those ones forward, but at least something as basic as food, you know, something as basic as, maybe fueling my car, I needed to be very cautious. I needed to know, ways to save. Then I started exploring the use of, saving points from buying things, keeping my points. Like I started keeping track of the points I gathered from even using my card.
mm,
No one taught me to start, claiming my points, unlike before where I would just have them accumulated for a long period of time and I'll probably never even know to use them. Right.
yeah.
So those moments, your lifestyle changes entirely. You're a different person. You start to like you become more conscious. You start to become like our parents when they start
Yeah.
complaining there's no money.
Yeah. Yes,
You're cutting
absolutely.
everything down. I started eating food. I couldn't afford to eat and not finish the food. Once there's any food I couldn't afford to finish, I put it in the fridge. I go back to it the next day. It
Yeah.
was more of, restructuring my life entirely, trying to get myself to fit into the situation and to handle it effectively because I didn't want to go back home to call my family for any help. Yes, they were available, they were ready, but I didn't want to be a burden to anybody in the middle of the struggle. Yeah, that was it for me. It was a lot of
Mm.
change in lifestyle.
Ah, for me, it was very significant. That the change in lifestyle was very significant. The very first one that I remember was that I had planned to go to Nigeria 2 weeks after I lost my job. I had booked my ticket. I had planned for my mom's 15th year death anniversary. And as
Wow,
soon
that's
as I lost my job, I cancelled that trip. So that trauma
wow.
also stayed because I had been planning for so long to do this death anniversary for my mom and I never got to do it. This time that I had planned to do it, this time that I had made arrangements back home in Nigeria, this was the time that I lost my job. So
So
it
sorry
was,
to hear about the cancellation, but yeah, such is life. Sometimes things happen,
yeah,
and some of the things that we've planned for might just get cancelled. On it becomes a necessity for us to
also
cancel those things.
cancel. Absolutely. Thank you. In fact,
Yeah.
in hindsight, I think maybe God was also saving me from something. I don't know. We never know.
Village people, right?
Exactly, exactly. Brilliant people. Maybe they were, God was like, you know what? This girl will not, if I tell her or I'll send someone to her to tell her not to go to Nigeria, she would never accept. If I send someone to cancel her flight, she would never accept. So I gotta do something very significant to make her not go.
I like the way you turned the story. I like the fact that you saw something positive out of something that was meant to be sad, that was meant to be bad.
Greatly,
You
yeah.
turned it around, looked at the positive side of it. And there's this saying that when life throws you lemon, you
You
turn
make a
into lemonade.
lemonade.
I see how you made lemonade out of a situation that was meant to be.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And
Appreciate
to
it.
be fair, like, because I don't know if there's any question related to that. I don't know if you have anything listed for that, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's also something that people should consider when things like this happen. It's not the end of the world. Honestly, I feel like the way I handled it wasn't the best. Those who were close to me at that time were also surprised that I went down, like I broke down,
Mm-hmm.
because it was something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah,
But if I don't pray for such, but if I ever find myself in such a situation again, I think I would handle it better
better.
than I
Yeah.
did the.
Yeah, you would handle it better because you have gone through it. To be fair to anyone, again, I'm going to say it, if anyone is watching who is going through a layoff, give yourself some grace. It is a terrible thing to go through. It takes an extraordinary level of strength for you to not be saddled by the shock, for you not to be broken completely by the shock. Yes, it's
Mm.
good that if you're able to bounce back quickly, maybe you have support systems, maybe you have financial, backups. Some people have a business and it's easy for them to bounce back. So maybe you have some of those things in place to help you. That's great. But if you are not picking up or bouncing back as fast as you want, give yourself some grace. Like we have shared, it broke us. For me, I was saying that it threw me to the ground. Another lifestyle change is I wasn't even motivated to do anything. I wasn't motivated to visit anybody. I didn't even have the money to visit anybody. I was living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, EI to EI, friends helping. Is it when your friend will send you something that you want to plan to use to buy groceries, that you want to use to go out? Like, so there was no motivation to do that. So there was no lifestyle change. I wasn't going anywhere, so I didn't need to buy any clothes or anything. Then groceries change. I would go to the mall. I really like grapes. I couldn't even get grapes. I couldn't get grapes. For the first time in 9 years of living abroad, my internet was cut off. I had never experienced, even as a student in America, I had never experienced them like cutting my internet. I
Wow.
remember calling my phone carrier to beg them to add data to me, like I was living in Nigeria, to my plan. Can you please add data to my plan? Because they cut my internet. So for me, it was a drastic change in lifestyle. I couldn't buy. There was a particular time I couldn't buy a case of water that was $3 for something. I had to boil water from the tap. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot changed for me. Friends were good, they were generous, but it was because I was servicing a lot of my expenses and I couldn't really leave. I couldn't leave
Yeah.
the apartment that I was in because I signed a lease. The lease was not over, so I continued paying that expensive amount of rent. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sad experience. In fact, I think some research actually talked about how similar, like, how job loss can be very similar to the loss of a family member. Now imagine someone who lost their family member. You wouldn't expect them to be out there, bouncing on the streets, buying expensive cars, flashing, living a flashy, like you'd suspect them, maybe they're probably the killer. you know
Absolutely.
because it's completely different. Like, you feel
Mhm.
sober for that period of time,
Mhm.
you walk through all the emotions. Trust
Mhm.
me, we handle things differently, but it's a sad experience. So let's treat such occurrences as though it's similar to a job, it's similar to an actual loss of life, because you tend to experience the same thing, almost the same thing, if not the same. I can't compare the two.
I can.
I mean,
When you're done, I'm
but
gonna I'm gonna share on
yeah,
that a bit.
it's sad. It's a sad
Yes.
experience. So yeah, let's learn to be nice to people. And I was gonna say this real quick. Before then, like, when someone tells me they lost their job or something happened to their job, I would say, well, I would empathize with them, but I wouldn't understand the extent, the gravity of what they were going through or they would go through as a result of the job loss. So it's time for us to start seeing the severity of these things. It's
Yeah.
way beyond just listening or saying sorry.
Yeah.
If there's anything you can do, maybe as little as collecting resumes from them, helping them with their resume revamp, doing something to help them. Like, providing any little support you can. It's very important to be there,
Yeah.
even as little as having conversation on how to ace their interviews could help them, could boost their confidence, because
Yes.
every help goes a long way. Every single help goes.
Yes. We will get there. There's a part or there's a question, a group of questions that has to do with the reaction of others. So we'll get there. But there's something that I remember, something that came to mind. Oh, I don't remember it now. I've lost my train of thoughts. Anyway, I'll just go through the questions. Um, did you get severance and was it enough?
Okay, well, severance, no, I didn't, because I was still within my probationary period, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I was entitled to severance. I
Yeah.
did check the workplace law in Ontario to to see if there was anything I was entitled to. At some point, I felt maybe the layoff was unjust, wasn't
Yes.
justified, but again, I sat down, I analyzed the situation. If I have to get a lawyer, I'm going to pay so much money to get a lawyer.
Yes.
So fighting the battle might end up being a lost one. So,
Yes.
so I'm like, okay, you know what? Just spend that time, focus on yourself, and try to get yourself out of this situation. But no, just to answer the question,
Mm.
I didn't get a severance because I was still within my probationary period.
Okay.
Um,
For me, I did not. I got 1 week. I think I was only entitled to 1 week because I had worked for 6 months. So I was entitled to 1 week off severance, so 1 week off pay. And she gave me an additional 1 week. But she also made me sign a termination contract where I signed that I could not sue her. So, and that signature was dependent on my severance, or the additional severance she was going to give me was dependent on me signing that document. And I
oh wow,
remember, yes, very callous. I remember,
that's strategic. Like you offering extra 1 week pay just to
yes,
shield yourself from legal legal attack. That's crazy. Like
yeah, just one
that
way.
tell you that the whole layoff thing was callous, just like you said.
Yeah, yeah,
You weren't really considering the impact that would have on the person. So rather than having them attack you, you kind of shielded yourself with just a week payment,
yeah,
extra
because you
payment.
know that they're vulnerable. Remember, you're vulnerable, you're not thinking straight, you also need the
Yeah.
money, any extra money. So, employers, I feel like they capitalize on that. And I think that this one
Hmm.
capitalized on that. I signed it, but I remember asking her to remove something off that termination contract, which was the um, non compete. So, was it non compete? I think it was non compete where I cannot. I'm not
You can work with
work
another
with
company.
another a similar company, and that
Yeah.
in that clause in the termination contract, the clause was for the next 12 months I would not be able to work for a
No,
similar
that
company.
would limit your chances of getting a similar job.
Exactly. So I fought that.
That,
In fact, I became my own lawyer because when I called the
yeah.
lawyer about it, they told me they charged me $3,000. I'm like, oh, I don't have that amount of money. So I
Yeah.
drafted. I went on to check the Ontario law, which says that
Mhm.
the non-compete thing is not legal. It stopped in 2021. I quoted that
Yeah.
law. I wrote a long email. I was going through depression, but man, in
But
that
that's
moment,
sad. Like, why would you want to take advantage of someone who was already down as a result of your
yeah, your
action,
action
and then
exactly.
you were still doing everything to shield yourself, to prevent yourself from any legal action,
Yes,
and to think that you're subjecting that person to a non-compete uh,
exactly.
law at the particular time where they obviously need to get themselves back.
But
So if the only job they could find at that time is something similar to this, it means they might not be able to take
yeah,
such job, because you're
yes,
setting you're putting them under restriction to not be able to do such a thing.
yeah,
That's extremely wicked. That's extremely callous.
yes,
And let's also talk about some employers. Some employers do not really care,
yes,
right? They
yes,
don't really give so much, attention to their employees. They only care about what they can get out of you.
yes, and
And I'm just gonna say this real quick. I know it's something non-related to what we're talking about,
for
but
sure.
I would say before you accept any job, this is based on personal experience. Do check reviews, read about the organization. If possible, get in touch with someone within the organization. Ask about your manager, your immediate manager, someone who is going to be managing it, right? And do not take those reviews for granted. They are a true reflection of what the organization is. At least if
Yeah.
you get 10 people to talk about your manager, if your manager is really a bad person, I can almost assure you that 9 or at least 8 out of 10
Yeah.
would say almost the same thing. But
Yeah.
if you have 5, let's say 5, it could be 50-50. Your experience with her might be, him or her might be different,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in a case where you're having 70% to 80%
Bad
of people
reviews.
saying the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
then I mean, that says something about the person you're likely to work with, and you need to
Exactly.
actually take into consideration, especially if you have a job already. If you're quitting one job for the other, you have to be extremely
You have
careful.
to
That
do
was
your
my
due diligence. I understand that the job market currently is very bad, and a lot of people who are without job may be forced into certain jobs just because they are kind of desperate. And doing your diligence on the company that may not be the ideal thing. However, it's better to do that due diligence before getting into something that you will run out of immediately.
yeah. I tell
So,
people like having a low income is better than having a bad manager with a high income, because your
absolutely.
job is part of your identity. It's part of what keeps you who you are, right? The fact that you have a place to wake up to every morning is something that is deeply rooted with you.
Oh,
So having
we're going
someone,
next. Just hold your thoughts because the next
yeah,
set of questions has to do with identity crisis.
identity, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's a sad one. So you need to choose who would form part of your identity carefully. It's like marriage, right? Choosing your partner carefully.
Yes.
So yeah,